The Night King is coming.
The dead are already here.
Hi everyone, it's Charlie. This is going to be my Game of Thrones Season 8 Episode 3 battle. We have so much stuff to talk about. What do we say to the God of Death? Not today. So if you're new to the channel, we're doing Game of Thrones videos all season. Be sure to subscribe to get everything. It's only getting crazier. We're doing the HBO Now giveaway. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and leave a comment on the video. There are so many epic things to talk about in this episode, but obviously careful for spoilers if you have not seen the episode yet because they pulled some really big left turns. We'll do top 15 WTF and Easter eggs from the books just like normal, so starting with number 15, the new opening credits. So if you notice, they've been changing the opening credits based on what's been happening in each episode. The big changes this week were mostly around Winterfell just to highlight the big battle. So you see the blue tiles flipping down all the way down to Winterfell, and you see all the trenches open up with their troops in formation. So presumably as we move down to King's Landing in the next couple of episodes, we'll slowly see the tiles flipping over, reflecting that, and we'll spend more time on the map down there. But because there was so much battle damage to Winterfell, don't be surprised if in next week's opening credits, they also do the same thing. Just like they did it when Theon sacked Winterfell during Season 2 and you saw the black smoke pluming out. But number 14, the open the episode from Sam's perspective is actually a brilliant way to do it. It's like R2-D2 and C-3PO opening Star Wars. You open with like the lesser characters and you get their perspective because he's freaking out, his hands are shaking, and all the troops are marching by. Everyone is in battle mode. You get the big wide shots that we saw in all the trailers. You see the Unsullied Legions, you see their ballistas in front of them, you see the Dothraki Blood Riders in front of them, and you get a couple different groups. So they would jump around to the different groups during the episode, and that's how they sort of broke the battle up. Because they were referring to this episode like their version of the Battle of Helm's Deep from Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. But in that battle, you actually have the Battle of Isengard happening, so you would bounce back and forth between the two battles. And in this case, we were just at Winterfell, so Miguel Sapochnik, when he was doing interviews about how he filmed the episode, he said that he used these different groups of people, particularly the people down in the crypts, to sort of bounce back and forth, so that it wasn't just wall-to-wall action. Like all the Arya stuff when she was inside Winterfell in the middle of the episode was just pure suspense. It was something right out of a Hitchcock movie. So I thought they did a good job with the structure of the episode, just to keep you from getting too fatigued with all the dog piles. Almost every single main character got dogpiled at some point, particularly Brienne and Jaime. They had a couple really great moments fighting together, even though the episode didn't feature them quite as much as it did the Starks. Primarily the Stark characters, because we're at Winterfell, it's their home, so even though Daenerys is obviously a really big character, you don't spend quite as much time with her as you do with Jon Snow. It's just that you see her a lot because she's fighting with Jon Snow and Drogon and Rhaegal. But basically, the different groups you have are you have Ser Davos sort of off by himself, but he's kind of briefly with Arya for a little while. You have Sansa and Arya, but then Sansa goes to the crypts, and she's with Tyrion and Varys, Gilly, and Little Sam for the rest of the episode. Like I said, Jon Snow and Daenerys flying around overhead with Drogon and Rhaegal throughout the episode. Thankfully, they both survived, none the worse for wear, even though they both go down at various points. They really wanted you to wonder if they were going to kill another one of the dragons. Brienne is with Pod, Jaime, and the Knights of the Vale, or at least they start off together, but for the most part, Pod stays with Jaime, Brienne, and then by the time they retreated, Tormund wasn't too far away from them. But you have to imagine that by the time they've retreated to the courtyard, everyone is in that really tight and closed space. Surprise appearance from a very good boy on the battlefield, very prominently featured at the line of the Dothraki Blood Riders with Ser Jorah wielding Heartsbane. You have Beric fighting with the Hound, Tormund, Gendry, Ed, and Samwell, all with the rest of the wildlings and the remaining Night's Watch brothers. I love everything about the first 15 minutes of the episode, just the silence before they actually ride out for the first time. Before that happens though, number 13, welcome back Melisandre. I was a little surprised she didn't bring any of the other Red Priestesses back with her or any of the Fiery Hand, but I think they did a good job using her during the episode as much as they needed to. Like, the episode went down, I think, a little bit differently than everyone expected. We all knew that there would be some twists, but they mainly used her for the fire twist and to remind you about that Season 3 scene that she had with Arya, prophesying all the eyes that she would shut. Turns out those blue eyes, pretty important. So for all the disgraceful Shireen burnings, you can't say that she didn't at least get a couple of her prophecies right on the money. She lights all the Dothraki torches up. It's this really good rally cry moment. They all get really hyped up before they ride out for the first time. And practically, it's a really good visual tool to help us, the audience, see what's going on screen because they're lighting the battlefield up. But number 12, that very first assault with the Dothraki and Ser Jorah. So they ride out, they're supercharged because of what Melisandre has done. But I love the way you see them right off into the blackness of night, and the really clever way that they let you know how terrible and insurmountable the odds are is that you slowly hear the Dothraki cries getting quieter and quieter, and you slowly see their lit weapons go out one by one until it's dead quiet and black again, and you start to see them straggling back. You see Ser Jorah shake his head at Tormund as he rides by. Nope, not happening. Daenerys is the first one to remount Drogon and take him into battle, so obviously that's when they start the first wave, number 11, of whites, just washing over all their forces, starting with the Unsullied like this sea of undead. You can literally see some of the whites crawling on top of the Unsullied because their formations are so tight. They have that really funny callback with Sansa and Arya where she's like, you go to the crypts now, hands her a dragonglass dagger, I don't know how to use it, stick them with the pointy end, just like Jon Snow told her during season 1 episode 2. So number 10, Sansa, Tyrion, and everything that happened in the crypts. So they actually have some really great moments between Sansa and Tyrion. They're mostly using them for the perspective down there. You kind of enter through Sansa's perspective. Just as we predicted, the whites were able to tunnel in through the side. They didn't come through the front door, just like they did when they were entering the Three-Eyed Raven's tree during season 6 when they were coming for him. Tyrion is actually really upset, kind of getting a little bit drunk, even though it might not seem that important that he's upset. Like, I could offer something, I could help them do something that they might not otherwise think of if I were up there. Sansa tries to tell him, no, you would just die, I would die, there's nothing we can do, we need to face the truth, that's the bravest thing we can do now. Even though that seems like a bit of a throwaway line in the moment, I think it's actually really important for Tyrion's character this season. For those of you that are wondering whether or not there's going to be some big betrayal this season, I think they're sort of laying the seeds in Tyrion here. So just think about how upset he is, about how he's being pushed to the side, people aren't listening to him. I won the Battle of Blackwater, he tells them all. He tries to remind them about all the good decisions he made in the first couple of seasons, even though he's been making terrible decisions the last couple of seasons. We're up against his sister in the last half of the season. Jaime's there as well, so just think about what's going to happen with Tyrion in the next couple of episodes. Keep your eyes peeled on the way that he reacts to all the battle planning that happens during episode 4. But I do love the way that Sansa treats him when they're down there joking about being married. You were the best of them. The good, the bad, and the ugly husbands that she was forced to marry at various points. Like, she almost got married to Joffrey, so I consider him in that group. But then you have Ramsay and Tyrion, who she actually did get married to. So number 10 though, as predicted, the Night King did not enter till way later in the episode, but you do see his magic early on with that giant winter storm that he creates to create some cloud cover and make it harder for Jon Snow and Daenerys to use the dragons. It's actually a pretty ingenious use of his magic. It makes it harder for all the troops to see, and later when they're trying to light the torches, the wind keeps blowing everything out while the whites are also taking down the torchbearers. The storm is so thick that it also causes Drogon and Rhaegal to collide mid-air. Jon and Daenerys almost fall off the dragons. They recover pretty quickly. Thankfully, the way they lit the episode, it was actually pretty easy to follow the action, even when there were 3 dragons on screen going at each other. But a little bit of that is because of Viserion's blue flame and the regular dragon's red flame. They had a really great moment later in the episode too when Bran wargs the ravens to get a really up-close look and see exactly what he's doing, and you get a really cool perspective shot of him reaching out almost as if towards you, reaching out towards camera, but really he's reaching out to command the whites. We didn't quite get the wizard battle between the Night King and Bran that I was expecting this episode, but they did share a really interesting moment right before he was killed by Arya that I'll talk about when we get later on my list. Obviously, the much bigger stuff is much lower on my list. But number 8, 15 minutes in, we finally get our first big character death, R.I.P. Ed. He goes down, saving Samwell. At least he helps him get back to the castle. Get up, Charlie! Samwell got dogpiled in this episode almost as many times as Brienne and Jaime got dogpiled. Grey Worm helps them protect their retreat as they get ready to light the trenches, because he destroys the barrier for the trench while the Unsullied legions are on the other side protecting their retreat. So I was like, wait a minute, is he leaving his men behind to die? Even though they probably had no qualms about that. They're not like regular soldiers, they have no problem taking orders like that. But number 7, Melisandre has to light the trenches because of that winter storm. And there's even a brief moment where her faith seems like it wavers and she's getting kind of worried, but it's all just to build suspense as she lights them the same way she lit the Dothraki weapons. So the fire sort of trails around, lighting up Winterfell. Everything about the way they lit the episode with fire, with the dragon fire when Daenerys would ride into battle, it was all beautiful. Almost every big frame like that in the episode was a painting, particularly when they had the 3-way dragon battle in the air. Number 6, Theon tries to have that final moment with Bran, apologizing for what he did. Bran gives him the speech, everything you did brought you to where you are here. It brought you back home. So this is actually important for the Arya stuff at the end of the episode too, when she kills the Night King. Because think about it this way, he's basically telling Theon that if you had done things differently, you would not be here now protecting me. And Theon is actually pretty badass during the episode. Just look at all the white bodies around him. Even though it seems like he did that by himself, there are other Ironborn around the Godswood. It's just that this late in the battle, they've all gone down, so it's just Theon and Bran by the end. But before that happens, there's a lot of stuff happening with all the other characters that I don't want to skip over. Like Brienne saves Jaime from a dog pile, just like Jaime saved her earlier in the episode from a separate dog pile. They fight back to back for a little while. The Hound completely lost his shit when they lit the trenches, with all the dead writhing in and around the flames, just giving you big flashbacks to Blackwater. The only thing that really shook him back to consciousness, that actually brought him back into the battle, was the threat of Arya dying. Beric points her out, and that drives them into Arya's storyline during the episode. But before we talk about that, number 5, the little bear versus the giant white. So if you weren't sure which giant this was, it wasn't 1-1 because Jon burned his body, so it was one of the other giants, and I felt like they gave her a pretty good way to go out, and really cool, brought her back when the Night King raised all the dead. 4 was Daenerys and Jon Snow's 3-way dragon battle with the Night King mid-air, so they try to take him on. He actually gets him pretty good, almost gets Daenerys, but Jon and Rhaegal managed to claw like half of Viserion's face away, which apparently didn't slow him down at all, because at the end of the episode, when Viserion was just laying blue flame all over the courtyard, he was doing it with half a face. I was actually kind of hoping that they would test the theory that Jon Snow cannot be burnt because he's part Targaryen, but they didn't quite take it that far, because then everyone fell, because it was right after Arya had killed the Night King. But number 3, Arya, the Hound, and Beric inside the castle. This is where they sort of shift into suspense mode, and Arya is just a super creeper trying to make it in and around the library stacks, trying to escape the whites until she backs into the door and finds that she has to go the exact opposite way. A lot of great kills, but the minute that Beric threw his flaming sword to save Arya from getting dogpiled, I knew that he was going down. Because like the minute you give up your weapon, you give up your defense, there's nothing you can do to hack them away, so that's pretty much it for him. I was only bummed out that he didn't burst into flames when he went down. You get that very brief Melisandre Arya reunion where she reminds her about that season 3 scene, eyes that you'll shut forever, brown eyes, green eyes, and, wink wink, blue eyes, which we now know are the blue eyes of the Night King in the Whites, the White Walkers, but mostly talking about the Night King. It's important to note, though, that Melisandre did not see Arya killing the Night King. She just saw Arya closing blue eyes. And by this late in the game, once they learned about White Walkers and Whites, she'd sort of parsed out what that meant. But one of the really cool twist payoffs of the episode was Daenerys' Dracarys, where she tries to give him the biggest Dracarys she's ever given anyone her entire life. And even though the Night King hasn't really betrayed a lot of emotions on his face the last couple of seasons, he looks up at her, smiles, and then reaches for an ice javelin, almost getting him the way that he got Viserion. But just to be clear, that does not mean that the Night King was a Targaryen. He was one of the first men. The Targaryen didn't come to Westeros till way later in its history. The Night King finally raises all the undead whites up just as Jon is trying to bum rush him. Doesn't quite get him in time. Daenerys is able to save him, but she's in such a state of shock that she pauses long enough for the whites to overrun Drogon, and I love just watching him freak out. But in this moment, he is in fight or flight mode. He just completely flips his shit, flies into the air, and is shaking all over trying to get them off, leaving Daenerys by herself. But as you would expect, she gets rescued by Ser Jorah, who gets to ride in and be her knight in shining armor, which is all he's wanted to do these last couple of seasons since coming back. Number 2, R.I.P. Theon and Ser Jorah as they both go down. I love the way that they sort of took a lot of the sound out of the last bit of the episode, and they have that really creepy, somber music as it seems like all hope is lost. The Night King and his White Walker generals are flanking, just slowly walking up to Bran. Bran gives him that epic speech telling him he's a good man because Theon knows in his heart that he's about to die. After the Night King kills him, it almost seems like he gives him a look of respect as he walks closer to Bran. But while this is all happening, you also have Ser Jorah just taking hit after hit for Daenerys, so it was pretty clear that he was going to go down, even if it wasn't going to happen till later in the episode. Number 1, of course, Arya Stark, for the win, MVP of the episode, kills the Night King with the Valyrian dagger with almost the same type of trick shot that she got Brienne with, dropping the knife from one hand to her lower one. Who here is surprised that they kill the Night King halfway through the season? I did a video yesterday about how Cersei is probably the bigger villain of the season than the Night King for kind of a reason like this. I wasn't totally positive that they would kill him in this episode, but I knew that he would be dead before the finale. I knew we weren't going to go into the last couple of episodes with him still being alive. I'll talk a lot more about Cersei when I post my episode 4 trailer video tomorrow, so just look out for that. But how about the look that the Night King and Bran share with each other before he's getting ready to kill him? It's almost like they know each other, like, oh, you're the person that I've been seeing in all my visions this whole time. What do we say to the God of Death? Not today. Confirmed dead are Ser Jorah, Beric Dondarrion, Ed, Kono, who was the leader of Daenerys' Dothraki Blood Riders, the Little Bear, and even though Ghost I don't think is dead, he's unaccounted for at the end of the episode. Everybody, let me know what was your favorite moment from the episode, or if you have any big questions, post them in the comments. I will be doing a Q&A later this week, but my episode 4 trailer video will post on Monday. While you wait for everything, click here for my video about why Cersei is the bigger villain of this season, and click here for my Game of Thrones Season 8 Episode 2 video. Thank you so much for watching. Everybody stay awesome. I'll see you guys tonight.